My husband's hand landed on my cheek so fast that I did not even understand when the pain started. Before I could breathe, my ears began to ring. His junior wife stood beside him with her arms folded, a wicked smile on her face, like she was watching a movie she paid for. "Get out of my house," he shouted. But the loudest thing in my heart was not his voice. It was the memories of how many years I had suffered to build that same house he was calling his own. I held my cheek and looked at him. Then I looked at the junior wife who was enjoying the drama. She even whispered, "Yes, get out." I felt something rise inside me, something I had never felt in all my years of being quiet, patient, and respectful. It was not anger. It was not pain. It was power. A quiet kind of power that comes when a woman finally decides she is done being treated like a doormat. And I said only one sentence. "This house is not yours. My name is on the papers." Their smiles froze. My husband's eyes widened. His junior wife's mouth opened like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. I slowly walked past both of them, went to my room, and brought out a brown envelope. I held it up in the air. "My name," I said softly, "is the only name written here, and tomorrow morning." I paused. Both of them waited. "I will sell this house." The junior wife shouted, "You cannot." My husband stepped forward and grabbed my arm, his face red and shaking. But I pulled my arm away. And in that moment, the whole house turned silent, too silent, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Because none of them knew that I was serious. They didn't know the full story behind how my name became the owner of the house. And they didn't know the promise I made to myself the day I signed those papers. Just as my husband raised his hand again, something happened behind us, something that changed everything in that room, something none of us expected. And that was the moment everything truly began. To understand how I reached this point, standing in front of the man I once loved while holding the papers that could destroy him, I must start from the beginning, long before the slap, long before the junior wife entered the picture, and long before I became the owner of the house he was claiming. Life was not always fire and shouting. In fact, the beginning was soft, too soft. When I met my husband, I was a simple girl with big dreams but small pockets. I believed in love with my whole heart. I believed that good people deserved good things, and I thought he was a good man. He wasn't rich, he wasn't popular, but he had a sad smile that made me want to help him. Maybe that was my first mistake. We married young. Our first years were sweet. We lived in a small room with a window that was always stuck. When it rained, we would push our bed to the corner so the water would not drip on us. We would laugh about it. We would cook noodles and pretend it was feast food. I thought we were building a life together. He thought I was building a life for him. I worked 2 jobs because he said things would be better soon. He always had a dream that was coming next week, but next week never came. Sometimes he would come home and say, "Don't worry, I will make you proud one day." I held those promises like gold, until they became dust. As months became years, I noticed that he changed. The sweet man became a loud man. The loud man became a harsh man. The harsh man became a stranger sleeping beside me. But I stayed, because I believed marriage meant patience. I believed suffering meant loyalty. I believed endurance meant love. One day, I got a small promotion at my job. I was so happy that I ran home with the letter still in my hand. "Guess what? They increased my salary," I said, smiling. My husband didn't look happy. He didn't even look surprised. He only said, "Good. Now you can support us better." That was when my heart started to crack. Not break, crack. Small cracks that nobody could see. Soon, he became controlling. Then ungrateful. Then careless. Then came the junior wife. A girl young enough to call me auntie. He introduced her as someone helping him with business. I was foolish enough to believe it. Until the day I saw them together in the restaurant, holding hands across the table like teenagers. I cried that night. Not because he cheated, but because I finally realized I had been alone in the marriage for a long time. The next week, he started staying out late. He stopped eating my food. He even started hiding his phone like it was national treasure. Yet I kept quiet. Because I had a plan. A quiet plan. A plan built on patience, pain, and paperwork. I saved money. I worked harder. I bought a small piece of land. And when it was time to build the house, I made sure the papers carried only one name, mine. He never asked. He never cared. He never imagined that I could build anything without him. But life has a funny way of turning quiet women into strong women. Months passed. The house was completed. He moved in like it was given to him by his ancestors. His junior wife began to visit. Then she began to insult me with her eyes. Then her mouth. But I kept quiet. Because the day I would speak, the whole world would hear it. And that day came faster than I expected. It began on a Saturday morning. I was sweeping the living room when I heard loud laughter outside. I opened the door and saw my husband and his junior wife carrying shopping bags, acting like I did not exist. She said, "Move out of the way." I didn't. She pushed me slightly, laughing. He did nothing. Hours later, an argument started. Words flew. Insults flew. Then the slap flew. His hand hit my face hard. The junior wife clapped like she just watched a comedy show. That was the moment I remembered the land. The building. The papers. My sacrifice. My truth. And that was the moment I decided the house would be sold. But just when I made that decision, something happened behind us. The junior wife screamed so loudly that the whole house shook. My husband and I turned at the same time, and what we saw made all of us freeze. The large wooden shelf in the living room, heavy, tall, and packed with glass plates, was falling. It leaned forward slowly, like a giant waking up, then suddenly tilted fast toward the junior wife. She tried to run, but slipped on the rug. I watched her eyes stretch wide, her mouth open, and her hands fly up to cover her head. My husband shouted, "Move." But she couldn't. I didn't think twice. I dropped the envelope in my hand and rushed forward. With all the strength in my body, I pulled her by the arm and rolled both of us to the side just as the shelf crashed, boom, to the floor. Plates shattered like thunder. Shards scattered everywhere. For a moment, none of us spoke. My husband knelt beside the broken pieces, breathing hard. The junior wife sat on the floor shaking, her voice small like a scared child. I could have died. My cheek still hurt from the slap he gave me minutes before, but I said nothing. I only stood, dusted my wrapper, and picked up the envelope from the floor. My husband finally stood up and faced me. "Why did you save her?" he asked, sounding confused. I looked at him with calm eyes. "Because her death won't clean your heart, and it won't heal mine." He stared at me like he didn't understand the woman standing in front of him anymore. The junior wife slowly stood up and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice trembled. She looked smaller than before, less proud, less bold. But I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to my room and closed the door gently behind me. Only then did I let one tear fall. Just one. Not because of the slap, not because of the insult, but because life had pushed me to the point where I had to save a woman who had been laughing at my pain. I sat on my bed, holding the envelope. It felt heavy, not because of the documents inside, but because of everything I had been carrying for years. Later that night, I heard my husband shouting at his junior wife. "Why didn't you watch where you were standing? Do you want to bring bad luck into this house? You embarrass me today." She kept crying, saying, "Why are you shouting at me? She saved my life, you did." Their voices were loud enough for the whole street to hear. I didn't step out. I didn't say a word. This time, they were fighting each other instead of fighting me. I lay down and let the noise wash over me like rain on a roof. The next morning, everything in the house felt strange, quiet but tense, like the air was holding its breath. My husband walked into the kitchen, where I was making tea. He didn't greet me. He didn't apologize. He only said, "About what you said yesterday, the house, you can't sell it." I stirred my tea slowly. "Why can't I?" He didn't answer immediately. He just folded his arms like a stubborn child. Finally he said, "Because I live here, and I am your husband." "I know you live here," I replied calmly. "But you forgot something. Marriage doesn't erase a name from paper." His eyes narrowed. "You want to disgrace me, right? That's your plan." I looked up at him, and for the first time in many years, I wasn't afraid. "No," I said, "you disgraced yourself." He slammed his hand on the table. "This house stays. That is final." "Not your final," I corrected. "My final." He looked like he wanted to explode. His face turned dark, his jaw tightened, and veins rose on his neck. Just then the junior wife walked in. Her face was swollen from crying. Her voice was small. "Please, can we just live in peace?" My husband turned to her angrily. "Stay out of this." But she didn't move. Instead, she turned to me. "I know I have treated you badly," she said. "I am sorry, I was foolish. I didn't know you were the one who built this house. I didn't know he treated you so badly. I didn't know everything." Her shoulders shook as she spoke. My husband stared at her like she had betrayed him. "You're apologizing to her." "She saved my life," she whispered, "and you didn't." Something snapped in him. He picked up the teacup on the table and threw it across the kitchen. It hit the wall and shattered into tiny pieces. The junior wife jumped. I didn't move. He pointed at her. "You think you can stand against me? You think you can take sides?" She didn't answer. He turned to me. "And you think you can just wake up and sell the house?" I stayed quiet. The silence made him angrier. "I will not let you shame me. Do you hear me?" He stormed out of the kitchen, grabbed his car keys, and walked toward the front door. The junior wife released a shaky breath. Where is he going? I didn't know. But something in my heart whispered that trouble was coming. Before I could speak, he suddenly opened the front door so roughly that it hit the wall. Then we heard it. The sound of people shouting outside. A loud voice yelling his name. Another voice screaming for help. We ran to the door. And what we saw made my legs shake. Something terrible was happening in front of the gate. Something connected to my husband. Something that would change everything in the next chapter. Because right there, outside the house, an extreme crisis was unfolding. And this time, none of us could pretend it wasn't real. The shouting outside grew louder, mixing with footsteps, cries, and the kind of noise that makes your stomach twist even before you know what is happening. The junior wife and I rushed to the doorway, but my husband was already running toward the gate. I followed slowly, my heart beating fast. When we stepped outside, the sight before us made me freeze. A crowd had gathered. Neighbors. Strangers. People from the next street. All surrounding one thing. Or rather, one person. My husband's younger brother, Mark, was lying on the floor near the gutter. His clothes were torn, his face swollen, and two men were holding him by the arms while shouting at him. A third man was packing around with a stick in his hand. "What is happening?" I whispered. The junior wife covered her mouth. "Oh my God." As soon as my husband saw the scene, he shouted, "Leave him alone. What are you doing to my brother?" One of the men turned around sharply. "So you finally came." People stepped back, creating a small space as the man with the stick approached my husband. "This your brother was caught inside Mr. Samuel's shop," the man yelled. "Trying to steal wires and tools. He wanted to break in." A gasp moved through the crowd like wind. My husband's eyes widened. No, Mark can't do that. He would never." The shop owner pushed forward angrily. "Never. We have him on camera. He was breaking the padlock with a stone." The junior wife held my hand tightly. "He's in serious trouble." My husband turned to Mark, shaking with anger and disbelief. Tell them it's a lie, tell them. But Mark only looked down, his lips trembling. He looked weak, defeated, dirty. And guilty. I'm sorry, he whispered. The crowd erupted again. Voices everywhere. Angry. Loud. Accusing. My husband staggered backward, as if someone had punched him in the chest. You stole. You brought shame to my name, to my house. The irony stung me. He was worried about shame. But he had never worried when he shamed me. Before I could think further, the man with the stick raised it high, shouting. He must follow us to the police station. Let him explain there. My husband jumped in front of them. No, nobody is taking him anywhere. You can't stop us, one man shouted. He's a thief. People tried to drag Mark up to his feet. My husband pushed one of them away. The fight grew wild. The junior wife screamed. I stepped back as people shoved each other, dust rising from their feet. Stop this, I cried. But nobody listened. More pushing. More shouting. Children crying. Women pulling their husbands back. Then something happened. Something fast. Something dangerous. The man with the stick swung it toward Mark again, but my husband blocked it with his arm. The stick hit him instead, hard, with a loud crack that echoed across the street. Aya, he cried out, stumbling. The crowd gasped. Even the junior wife screamed. My husband fell to his knees, holding his arm in pain. Everything suddenly became too quiet. Too heavy. Too cold. Because at that moment, everyone realized what the fight had turned into. A street scandal. A family disaster. A public disgrace. And all of it was unfolding right in front of the house he claimed was his. The police siren sounded in the distance. The crowd moved back instantly. 2 officers stepped out of the car, their faces hard. Everybody stand still. What is going on here? People began shouting their explanations all at once. He stole from the shop. He tried to run. They tried to stop us. The brother blocked us. The officers looked at Mark, then at my husband, who was still holding his painful arm. The older officer said coldly, All of you inside, we need statements. Inside. Inside my house. The same house he slapped me inside. The same house he tried to throw me out of. The same house he didn't know I could sell at any moment. We all walked in, the police following behind us. Neighbors watched like it was a movie they didn't want to miss. Once we were inside, the officer looked around and said, Who is the owner of this house? We need the person responsible to guide us. My husband stepped forward with pride, even with his injured arm. I am the... No, I interrupted. I stepped in front of him and stood tall. I am the owner. Every eye in the room turned to me. The junior wife stared. My husband blinked, speechless. The officers paused. I raised the envelope in my hand. My name is on the documents. The house belongs to me. The officers nodded respectfully toward me. Then you're the one we will speak to. My husband's face twisted into shock and anger. How dare you embarrass me like this in front of police? But before I could answer, the junior wife whispered something that shook the room more than the slap he gave me. She said softly, If the house belongs to her, then you're not the man you pretend to be. My husband turned sharply. What did you say? She stepped back, tears filling her eyes. You lied to me too. You told me you built this house. You told me she was only living here because of pity. She pointed at me. But she is the owner. My husband looked like he wanted to explode. His chest moved up and down fast, his face turning red. Shut up, just shut your mouth. The police officer raised a hand. That's enough. But my husband didn't stop. He turned to me with fury burning in his eyes. If you sell this house, he said slowly, voice shaking with rage. "I swear something terrible will happen in this family." The room fell silent. Even the police officers stood still. The junior wife covered her mouth. Mark looked up weakly. And then, just as my husband took a step toward me, just as his anger reached its highest point, just as everyone held their breath, something happened behind us. Something shocking. Something loud. A sudden crash came from the kitchen. A crash followed by a scream. We all spun around. Because someone had fallen. And not just fallen. Someone was lying on the kitchen floor. Not moving. Not responding. Not breathing normally. The kitchen was chaos. The air smelled of burnt tea and dust from the crash. My husband froze, his mouth open, eyes wide. The junior wife clutched my hand so tightly her nails dug into my palm. Mark sat up weakly, staring at the scene like he didn't understand what had happened. It was the neighbor, Mr. Lawson, who had come over to help with the earlier commotion. He had tripped over a bucket of water and fallen against the stove, sending pots and pans crashing to the floor. One pan had hit his head hard. Blood started to flow, and a groan escaped his lips. "Call an ambulance," I shouted, my voice cutting through the panic. The junior wife ran to grab her phone, her hands shaking so much that she almost dropped it. Mark tried to help, but I stopped him. "You sit, you're injured too," I said. I knelt beside Mr. Lawson, pressing a towel to his head to slow the bleeding. My husband stood frozen, staring at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. The fear in his eyes, the shock, the anger, all mixed together. He finally stammered, "Why you saved everyone again." I looked at him calmly, letting the silence speak louder than any words. "You mean what I have always done. I take care of the mess you refuse to see." The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics took over, lifting Mr. Lawson onto a stretcher. Before he was taken away, he looked at me and whispered, You saved me. And that slap, it didn't break you. You're stronger than anyone here." My husband's face went pale. The junior wife looked at him, her expression no longer afraid but disappointed. That night, after the chaos settled, I sat in the living room holding the envelope. My husband didn't speak. He didn't even sit. The weight of the events, the slap, the junior wife, the chaos outside, the public humiliation, and now this near accident, hung over him like a storm cloud. I finally said quietly, "Tomorrow morning I will sell this house. It's mine. Every brick, every wall, every memory belongs to me." He flinched, but he did not argue. The junior wife stepped back, unsure if she should speak. I looked at her gently. "This is not about you. This is about respect, about truth." My husband finally turned to me, his face softening for a moment, though pride still fought to stay on top. You really mean it?" he asked, almost whispering. "I do," I replied. The next morning, I went to the office of the real estate agent with the envelope. As I signed the papers to sell the house, I felt a surge of freedom and strength. I thought about all the years I had been pushed down, ignored, insulted, and slapped. I remembered every tear, every lonely night, every sacrifice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud. The house, which had once been a symbol of my husband's control, was now a testament to my courage. I didn't just reclaim my property, I reclaimed my dignity. When the buyer came to inspect the house, my husband and his junior wife showed up. He tried to speak, but I shook my head. "This is done," I said. He looked defeated. The junior wife stared silently. And as the house keys were handed over to the new owner, I realized something life-changing. Power does not come from anger, threats, or slaps. Power comes from patience, wisdom, and knowing your worth. From that day, my husband never raised his hand again. He learned that respect is earned, not demanded. The junior wife learned that deception, and mockery cannot outshine truth. And I learned that even in the darkest moments, when humiliation, betrayal, and danger surround you, you can rise. You can walk away stronger. You can turn pain into triumph. That house, sold on a bright morning, became more than property. It became a symbol, a reminder that no one can take your dignity if you know your value. And in the end, I realized the greatest lesson of all. You do not need anyone's permission to take control of your life. You do not need anyone's approval to protect your peace. You do not need to stay where you are not respected. I walked away from that house smiling, lighter than I had been in years. And I knew, deep in my heart, that my life, my story, was finally mine. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more videos. And you can drop your comment about the story.